Hello, welcome to Currency episode 132. I continue to make this podcast. I can't quit it. I tried to quit it. I can't quite shake it out of my system. Glad to be here. Glad to be able to speak with you. I have a message for you. Here it is. And here's that message. Here it is. Anyway, I wanted to start by saying I want to talk about this, something I mentioned in the last episode about criticism. I was talking about this thing where it's like Christian people that I know, I found out about a year ago, I had like an epiphany. And I was like, oh, Christian people, all that they do is criticize me or something. I want to explain what I mean by that. What I mean is that it's not that they criticize me. I mean, I see through experiences in my own life that it would be the case that they are just criticizing everybody, but not in a positive way. I guess for some people, like I was saying, if you are at a low enough level of criticism, the church's level of criticism will have a positive impact on your life. And I'm talking about levels of criticism. I'm talking about, but I just wanted to clear up that, like, it's not like Christian people got back to me and they're like criticizing me, and as a result of that, I'm like, I'm not, I hate Christianity because they criticize me or whatever. I just mean it in a very condescending way, as condescending as it sounds. I mean it in a condescending way. Oh, Christians, they just criticize. They're just criticism. I'm just talking shit when I say that. Like, the criticism that Christians have to offer me is so beneath me that I can just describe all of it as criticism. And so why is that the case? It's the case because, and also it's an exaggeration because it's talking shit and it's not completely real, what I'm saying with that. It's an exaggeration. It's not like every time I'm around Christian people, they're criticizing me, especially like with their words or whatever. There have been plenty of times in the past year, I mean, not plenty. There's been a number of times in the past year I've hung out with Christian people and they're not like criticizing me and we've had a great time or whatever. I just mean this in like a condescending way. Come at me as hard as you want with your criticism, Christian people or anybody, just to explain myself. I don't care. That's why I'm just calling all of it criticism. Like, for example, if you talk shit to me on Twitter, that I love it. I love that. I love the mudslinging. I love the fighting. I love talking shit. I love the jokes. I always have, as you would generally probably know about me. If you know me, this is a message just for people who know me, especially to clear it up, but for everybody's benefit, that I explain this relationship I have to Christianity about criticism, because Christians are banking on that they're better at criticizing you than anybody else, that nobody's going to get to the point where they're like the position that I'm in right now, where I'm like condescending to an entire religion of like 1.3 billion people or whatever it is. But I'm saying it condescendingly, like, it's your Christianity, you should offer better criticism to me, but I don't believe you'll ever be able to, because your level of criticism does not include respecting me. And that is why that is why Christian criticism is beneath me, is because you're trying to make me into an image, Christians. And there's no respect involved in that, but it has to do with that the Christian reality is one of forgiveness. That's forgiveness world. Christians own forgiveness. Based on that, they use the term way more than people in the world. And I mean that they cite it all the time. Just in a given church service, you're a lot more likely to hear the word forgiveness at church than like somewhere else. And so there's certain terms that the church takes hold of, and they're like, we own this term. And then there's not really any fighting it for anybody out in the world. They're just like, oh, Christians took the term safety like this because of the Savior. And they really kind of own safety, because a savior is somebody who makes people safe. It's just kind of the ending that the word safe turns into savior at the point that the safe maker is the savior is just a cork in the English language that Christians are taking advantage of, because it becomes a relatively more undefinable term that you're able to trace savior back to safety. And so when it's undefinable like that, they take advantage of it, same as the word Noel, or recognize that faith is a destiny kind of term, and Christians are all about destiny, to the point that they make their life a destination upon joining the church. And by that I mean end game. Once you sign up, once you're like, oh, I signed my soul over to Jesus, that's you've made your life a destination, and you've already arrived at your destination, and that destination is Christian. Your chosen identity. Like, oh, this was the end. This was the ending of it. So that you're like, oh, my life on earth doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is my eternity outside of what I see here in the world. You make it, I've arrived at my destination, did it. Jesus loves me, and that's who I am forever, and that's what makes me who I am. If you're willing to go that far and like commit to it to that level, to be like, I am a Christian, you have arrived at your destination. It's a destiny. And so you arrive at your destination a lot faster than people in the world who are just like, they're just kind of like randomly and freely determining where they're going throughout life, as long as they think that what happens in the world is all that matters or whatever. They haven't arrived at their destination really until they die. You are overriding the power of death, right? When you sign up for Jesus, you're like, I'll make it so that my death at the end of this doesn't matter. I'm taking control over my destination right to begin with. Now it's in my grasp. I did it. Now I already know where I'll be after I die for eternity or whatever, because I signed up for the Jesus package, where he is the king over death. And so, so that like death isn't your fate. But like, I'm just saying, I've gotten to this level that most people don't reach, probably because there's religions that try to stir up a lot of angst and confusion in people's hearts about criticism, where you're like, oh, if you mention the thing that you are criticized about, now you're just admitting to it, and now you just are that thing, or whatever. It just sounds like you're not able to take a joke if you're like, hey, you can't if you're talking about criticism the way that I am. You're like, oh, that's criticism, I don't listen to that, or whatever. I guess it kind of like makes it that I'm very serious, which is true. I am serious, as opposed to funny a lot of the time. But I'm saying, like, I'm not afraid of standing up to criticism. So I'm willing to talk about it openly, bring up this issue of criticism. I believe that there is an attitude across the world where we all kind of don't talk about it because people are afraid of it. Then they're more afraid of it than they let on. And people come up with identities and whatever to make sure that they're protected against anybody making fun of them, because the world on its own doesn't have this like natural sense of community. That sense has been commandeered by the church, or by Muslim, or by religions. Religions took the power of community from the world. I mean, that's where community is. That is community. That is communism. Exists in where it exists in actual form, it exists in religions. And so when the world talks about like, we need to fix our neighborhoods, our communities, or whatever, They're not, they're in shambles a lot of the time. The neighborhood, like, yeah, the neighborhood is good or whatever. It's more open-minded. It doesn't make you, it doesn't restrict you to like a title or an ideology, or it's like, oh, we all signed on to the contract of we're going to be this title and that's what makes us our community. And so these things are just natural things that come about, like giant communities, because like community is a good thing, and Christians found a way to make it that they are the ones who own communities, who own large groups of people looking out for each other without it being like a gang where you had to like kill somebody to get in there. I mean, it's always like whatever community, any real community, there's initiation to get in. So like a neighborhood is really not ever a community because there's no qualification. There is no contract that everybody, there's no like sacrifice anybody had to make. And that's the world we live in, is one where in order to receive, community is not right given to everybody, you know. It's like you, if you really want to be part of something, you have to take part of the initiation to get in. You have to get your hands dirty or whatever. And like, I am willing to talk about criticism. And so so I'm saying, like, I just wanted to clear up that it's not like I'm over here like, oh, see, Christianity, you pushed me away with your criticism. I love the criticism. I just find Christian criticism to be boring because because I was very intrigued by it for most of my life, as long as I was in the Christian church, as long as they were convincing me that Christianity was the only true reality, and I believed that, and I lived in that reality, and that was my life. Christian level of criticism was very intriguing to me during that time. But once I found out that Christianity is a lie that people are telling me, and that's a different epiphany that I had, and that's the most important realization that I had, and I had it when I was 25. When I talk about this other epiphany that specifically addresses the issue of criticism that happened a year ago, but that's just me pinpointing a more specific aspect of Christian doctrine and practices, where, and I'm giving a word to it as criticism. And it's like there's a certain thing that's upsetting to me about it that turns me off to the point that, like, I'm not going to listen to that. It has to do with respect. It's just that at some point I realized that I want respect, and that when I was in the church, I wasn't asking for respect from people. And to be honest, I get paranoid about Christian people that I know. They are just living off of the person that they knew me to be when I was in the church, and that person didn't ask for respect, to be frank. And it's because that's the forgiveness world. It has to do with forgiveness. Once I found out that Christianity was a lie, I didn't have to live in that reality. All of a sudden, I don't really have any... Forgiving people, there's no incentive for me to do that, I realize. But it's like in Christianity and in forgiveness world, I didn't ask for respect because, like, my understanding was that nothing I do on the earth matters, and so I'm not like, we're not given over to vengeance or whatever. I just forgive everybody every time, and because, like, that's the Christian way. Because according to Christianity, what you're supposed to do is continually forgive people no matter what they do. And so, like, it wouldn't have mattered any transgression anybody had against me. I was just forgiving all of it in the church. You could walk all over me. My name is Matt. And, hey, this thing happened, though, where I'm like, oh, I don't have... But it's like, you really shouldn't lie to me about the entire idea of forgiveness, which is what the church does. Because then at some point, when I don't want to be a part of that, now I live in zero forgiveness world. And I'm like liable to go to the complete opposite way where I forgive nothing. I'm not going to allow it to be like that, but however, I have I don't really have a lot of tolerance for, or whatever. I don't have tolerance for meh because I have such high standards for how you treat me. That's like what I'm trying to not say to you. I think that it's like pretty useless if all that you have for me is criticism, which is all that Christians have when it's like they don't have authority to be anything other than a Christian. And so all that they can do is hold Christianity over you. And unfortunately, that's not going to work on me, somebody who was already there and did it and saw that there's nothing at the end of the tunnel. Because Christianity, the criticism of it works a lot better on people who never went to church. They can all, because you never went in to find out. But anyway, like, because criticism is like that. Criticism is a bully. You can't, you don't want it to let it overshadow you and intimidate you, which is what a lot of people do. They just never, a lot of people, and I would say a lot of people that are participating in religions get to a point within the religion, because the religion provides this sheltering, safe environment where you don't have to talk about that you feel bad about criticism or whatever. It's just kind of like completely ignored and understood that once you reach a certain age, you're not liable to be criticized or whatever, especially like if you're married and the more identities that you have to protect yourself. It's like that's what the church makes you free from that, free from having to participate in the dirty businesses, the dirty practices of whatever's happening in the world. And I'm saying, like, it shouldn't be like that. You should have to face criticism all the time. And I'm saying the pattern is obvious to me, that a lot of Christian people I know, at the point I let them know, all you're doing is criticizing me, they're just like, I'm saying, like, that defines them, and that's the cap. Is like, there's more criticizers than there are Christians, even though there's like a ton of Christians. Most groups of people in the world don't have more than Christians. There's more criticizers than there are Christians, because there's people who criticize that aren't in the church, but I mean, you get what I'm saying. Like, I don't like to hear the criticism at the time or whatever, the shit talking. Obviously, it stings or whatever. It's like, whatever. If you're criticizing me, well, I can be criticized for sure. I just most people aren't able to reach my level of criticism. I'm sorry. Unfortunately. But it's a criticizing thing, and Christians just like to hold it over everybody. It's like this people always say to me about that they don't know if I'm being serious or if I'm joking. And when I was in the church, I've been the same person the whole time. It's just that filtered through Christianity, a lot of what I'm saying is a joke, because the environment in Christianity makes a big joke out of everything in the world. And it wasn't like, oh, all of a sudden I realized Christians are criticizing me. I already knew that, especially at the point that I realized that I don't believe in Christianity when I was 25. It's really like Christians are making a big joke out of my life to treat all of it sarcastically. A lot of the time when people say that, I don't know if you're being serious or you're being sarcastic. I'm being serious, you know? Because what I've unfortunately realized is that I'm kind of like a serious kind of person. It's just that I got it in my head that I'm funny because the church has always treated me as, has had to treat what I have to say as a joke because they can't accept it. So they're like, oh, you're just being sarcastic. You can't seriously mean any of that. Like when I'm like, oh, I'm a Semite because whatever the Jews did to me. Sounds almost like a joke, but I'm being serious about that, and I'm glad I put that episode out. Not every episode that I put out am I, like, proud of as the day after I put it out transpires. And I think about that episode. Not always am I happy about it, but this one I am proud of, and I'm proud of it because I'm the only person responsible enough that I've ever heard to bring this issue to the world's attention and be like, hey, this should be taken seriously, this thing that Jews are doing. Because basically, Christians and Jews get a hold of it and they treat it like this is a non-issue. And it is almost like a non-issue, right? Then that's how people treat it, is that like, oh, you're talking about circumcision, like we don't even know, and what does it matter, or whatever. So it's like, oh, does it matter? But I'm proud of what I said because I'm the only one responsible enough that I've heard to take this thing seriously, this dirty, weirdo, practical joke that the Jews are playing on the world. It's just that they already did it, so I'm just trying to give a voice to it. It has to do with identities. It has to do with, and I'm somebody who can articulate this issue well, and you can believe what I'm saying about it because I have more authority over identity than other people, because I made a 109, I recorded 109 plus hours of audio on the topic of identity. I began it and ended it. The same as an author who writes a book titled something, they have authority over that title to the extent that you would say or believe that they have authority over the title of the topic that they wrote the book about or whatever. I have more authority over identities than other people based on my depth, my ability to talk about identities that I've already proven. And I'm just saying, like, relatively more than other people, you would trust me on identity based on my authorship, because I'm the author. I'm the author of identity. I'm the only person that's given a full, like, a version of their identity that they put entirely online, that in the entire world, as far as I know. But not that I would have said it that way at the time. I didn't exactly know what I was doing, but it's really like, it's a good artistic project to have, because what is an identity? It's really kind of abstract. What is it? Especially when you factor in things like, well, the Jews are making you a Jew when you're a day old, according to their Bible. And so they're really just entirely fucking with the idea of identity, this thing that the world holds to be very important, apparent, according to them, you know? They say that it's we respect identities. And so, but it's like, what is an identity? I don't make friends with, when I make friends with a person, I'm making friends with whatever vibe is behind the shit on the surface. I'm not making friends with an identity. What the hell is an identity? And especially when it's like the Jews are making it even this more confusing Jewy thing where they're purposefully fucking with identities. But then the world comes to you and says, like, well, identities are very important, or something. And but it's a thing about real versus fake. I mean, like, joking versus serious is just something that people tried to describe me as. But, like, in the church, that was kind of just like a different... That was the criticized version of myself that people were getting. Doesn't mean it's not me. Doesn't mean I'm not proud of who that was and the people that I met and all of that. And when I was in college, my name, people called me Steele, and so that's an opportunity for me to be a different person, really, than this one that I am now, Matt Connor. Matt is different from Steele because of identities, but it's that person is cooler than me. That's the point I want to make. Steele is cooler than Matt because, for a number of reasons, it has to do with the title, but Christians take the word gay and they're like, happy. It used to be happy, and then it took on this entirely new life where people, Christian or not, people in the world are spouting back that what makes you gay is if you fuck other guys. Now, I've never fucked another guy. That has not stopped me from being gay. Because gay is a lot more things than fucking other guys. However, you're not going to get to the root of the truth of that if you're listening to, like, the church, who would love to spin this lie where they fuck with people and try to turn their life into images, try to make it a horror story, reduce you to something you're not, reduce you, and by that I mean reduce you to images. Like, oh, if you're gay in any sort of way. And because my belief is that gay is very many things besides fucking a guy. It's like having a hustle. It's just like any weirdo, ridiculous thing, like being an artist, being Don Toliver or whatever, like especially taking another title like Snoop Dogg. It's very gay because it's like because of how he's identifying himself in this separate way, and now he has to commit to that individually. He has to be colorful and flavorful in contrast to giant corporatized gray systems in the world, like the U.S. government, like any like government workers or religion or education. Really, the less gay, in comparison to the less gay systems in the world, are artists, people who have to take on this role, this specific role, and commit to it. It's more difficult to try to convince people of that is gay. And when you're in a more Christian climate, people are just a lot less willing to really go that extra mile. Like, it's to be extra is very gay. Like, or whatever it is. Like when Sam Smith dresses in the most ridiculous thing that he can, that's what gay has become nowadays. Is like, see, I'm gonna do something so improbable. This year it was so improbable that I would dress as this, like he'll dress as something completely ridiculous. Nobody was anticipating it because it's just like a giant. He'll dress in just like a giant dark gray, like balloon or something that's like a balloon on his arms and a balloon on his legs or whatever, and just whatever amount of any ridiculous thing you could imagine, any like bullshit thing given over to the imagination. It's like, whose gay imagination construed this idea that, and now he's actually wearing it where people can see him. Like, that's a risk to take, and you look ridiculous in comparison to everybody else. The more out of the ordinary it is, where you're like, oh, nobody in the world would have expected I took it in this very specific direction, and it's so improbable that this would result at all, is gay. It's kind of sickly. It's kind of sick. Like, very twisted, very horror. I mean, yeah, I guess, like, horror. Twisted, at least. But, like, what I'm saying is, Christians, of course, are going to take gay is a word with a lot of utility. It's not just these very improbable weirdo things that you could dress up as. It's like, you can also be slightly weirdo in the way you dress, or slightly weirdo the way you identify yourself. It's individualistic identity behavior is being gay. Christians have incentive to try to convince everybody to stay home, you know, live a boringer life where you're not risking anything, so where nobody sees you. It's like being seen in any sort of fantastical way is gay, is more gay than staying home, making no loud noises or making yourself noticeable, like stealing the show, being dramatic, whatever. If Christians want everybody to stay home because they don't care about what anybody does on the earth. So they're like, don't. So anyways, when that's the case, they're going to take a word like gay that can be all of these things, and they're going to try to reduce it to, if you fuck guys, you're gay. And they'll make fun of everybody very hard for that. And it's to the point that if you have a hustle, if you're like, even if you're like Elon Musk, like, I want to go to Mars, that's like the gayest thing ever. Christians don't want anybody to do that because they want people to be of the mindset of laziness. They're like, you don't do anything spectacular on the earth because we're not trying to make something of ourselves in this world, because you'll get your earthly reward or whatever. But that's just their mentality, and that's what their group decided on. Like, and so because everybody in that group kind of does that, they're like, oh, gay is a very threatening idea to them because of because you might get it in your head that you're very intelligent and more intelligent than other people, and you might start making connections and start transforming this closed off little simple world. Like, if you're a mad scientist, you might start creating inventions that are so transcendent that they destroy the borders of this closed off system that's kind of, fragile ultimately. Like, somebody might come up with a technology that kind of like destroys Christianity, or if like we ran into aliens, that kind of anything that would transcend us out of the biblical narrative, break us out of that system. Gay things might lead you to that. Curiosity might lead you to that. So they come up with we come up with phrases to trap the curious, or discourage the curious, or like, curiosity killed the cat, see, you're gonna die if you're curious, you know. Gay might lead you out of the biblical narrative, so Christians have to go pretty hard into like, well, the biblical narrative will be practiced by everybody on the earth, we have to rein in everybody, so we're gonna make it that gay is just fucking a guy. So they're like, so now it's that if you have a hustle, that might relate you back to, not that it's like really spoken in this way. People are afraid of criticism, so they don't, they're not going to articulate their fear of being called gay ever, because then that makes you that. And then if you say it, then that makes it that now you're fucking guys. And that's like a very unattractive thing or whatever. I mean, like, that alone obviously is against their narrative, because the biblical narrative that begets Christianity begins with a man and woman fucking, and procreation and advocating of straight sex and whatever. I mean, obviously it says in the Bible, but like, the Bible is already in the business of protecting itself as it's being written, and that's why it's such a successful, powerful book, is because it has very many, because it propagandizes and I forget the word that I was about to say. Propagandizes and progresses itself in real time, makes itself believable in real time. I mean, it's a pretty tight argument that the Bible is that it created, and so it's powerful enough that it's already able to look into the future and see that gayness would be a problem. Christianity is often looking, I mean, this is something they did just to me in my own life. They're like, oh, what in the future will make him transcend out of the biblical narrative in his own life? What might he think about that might make him decide that he should leave the church? And so they brainwashed me about that evolution is 100% not real. And so they're like, he will at some point start to realize that there's the world has this good argument against creation being the beginning for all of it, And so they're like, he has to believe that evolution is the thing. And then at some point I didn't, just don't lie to me about don't lie to me about my entire life just so that just because the plan is that I stay within this reality my entire life or whatever. And as long as they're in the church, I'm okay with transgressions against me. Like, you lie to me and I forgive all of them, but not when the thing I realize is that the entire forgiveness reality is a lie. Then we have some problems, you know? But, like, so I bet you're interested. What is it that made me switch out of the Christian thing? What happened? And it's both like it's a progression of events, so it's no one thing, but it also is like I can point to one thing also, but I'll explain that in the future. I can't give away all of the information. I'm banking on that the entire story and me just explaining parts of it as I'm doing now is interesting enough to people that they want to continue to be on board for it. But, like, so, like, I'm susceptible to criticism. I'm not saying, like, you can't criticize me. Like, do criticize me. I've always liked that. I've always liked the joke. But it's like when people say that to me, it's really like I'm being serious. I don't know that it's that hard to figure it out. It's not that much of a riddle. But I get that it's like, because even I get confused about whether I'm being serious or if I'm joking. I totally get that. Like, that's totally valid for you to say that to me. Because it's just at different times it just depends on what you see. And the thing that you see is the identity. Because, like, into the church, so once I'm outside of the church, this person that I am now, the not criticized version of myself, the person who's, like, more relatively above criticism of all kinds, it's serious, but it's, like, to the people that are below me, it will look like a joke. Because that's the way that jokes work. The joke is being played on the people that are within the joke. It has to do with the line. If you cross the line, you're crossing a line into people's identity. Like with a joke, when a joke crosses a line that offends people, and then like that's what we consider a good joke, or at least controversial. It's because when you make a joke, you're drawing a line, or at least you're attempting to, and so the good jokes are the ones that you're able to hold over a percentage, of the population, a segment of society, and to, like, cross a line into their identity to fuck with them, to, like, challenge their identity or whatever. That's what the joke does. And so if you are the Joker, this is somebody who is... The Joker is... The more Joker you are, is the more levels of criticism you're transcending, is the greater your ability to condescend to other people. And so if you're playing... The thing is that it gets murky because sometimes you don't know if you're playing the joke or if the joke is being played on you. Obviously, this is like all of life because people are just throwing judgments back and forth all the time, just the way that they talk. Like it's ridiculous for me to be like, hey, so that's why I'm clearing it up. Is like I'm not like you can never criticize me. Everybody is criticizing me all the time. That everybody's criticizing everybody. Just like it's just natural. If you're kind of in the business of saying like all of it is shit talking, which is kind of what I have been more and more saying is true about it, especially over the past year, especially after somebody told me gave me the description that the way I talk could be that's shit talking. Just like the natural way I talk, not all the time, but like at least in that instance when somebody said it to me. I'm capable of talking while shit talking at the same time, or like my talking is shit talking. And shit talking is bullshit too, by the way. It's like fake. It's jokes, the same way that jokes are fake. But it's your your ability to be unreal is more valuable than your ability to be real if you do it right. It's just that it's difficult to convince people that you are real if you are saying so many things that they don't understand. But the Joker is more outside of the thing, and I'm being So for the people that I'm condescending, like Christianity or whatever, I'm challenging their identity just by what I'm doing now. Like, oh, it's shit talking to say you're just what you're doing is just criticism. It's just that most people, it doesn't get to that point, but it has, it's maybe more of a buzzword in recent days. Elon Musk tweets about criticism specifically, just because most people don't get to the heart of the issue where they're realizing how big an issue criticism is, that they're just like trying to address this thing. But anyway, am I being like completely obnoxious yet? It's not, I'm just it's pretty obnoxious, pretty arrogant, what I'm saying. But I don't really want to carry myself that way. I like the shit talking. It's just that, it's like, because I like the shit talking, it is always like it's a joke. Like, it's not like it's totally invalid when I'm in the Christian church for them to say all of the things I'm saying are sarcastic, especially when it's in the church and the church environment is unrealistic. And at the time, I'm probably just trying to give a voice to how not in reality it actually is, how fantastical the reality is that the church is saying is reality. Where they're like, see, we're all going to go to beautiful golden kingdom in the sky when this is done. Of course I'm going to be sarcastic about that. But at the time, and lots of Christians are, but they don't even realize it. It's just kind of like everything sort of gets treated as a joke when your reality is something that is not the optimal reality. Where I would say the optimal reality is just the world, because that's more real, because you're forced to treat everything you see in front of you as, this is my life. The day I'm living today is all that it is, and it's not like there's necessarily something after this. When you're forced to face reality just as it comes at you, I would say that's a more optimal reality than a closed-off system that has borders. That is a sub-reality. By comparison is a lesser reality, in my opinion, and so is therefore less real. But the identity is what I'm talking about. It's just that people see different things in me at different times, and so it might be a joke or it might be serious, but there's this principle that's important to me. Let me end by saying that. I'll say this other thing first. Speaking of criticism, SNL is all about criticism. I don't know. Lorne Michaels is from Canada, and he's a Jew. People from Canada, I don't know what's going on. Those celebrities that cross over, The Weeknd, Mike Myers, whoever it is, that's it. Lorne Michaels. They are. You notice how Canadians have this confidence that the celebrities that make it really big over here, from Canada, they have this confidence that Americans don't have. And so there's something gypsy about it, where they are like, they're putting their confidence in something that they're holding over Americans, that they're like, see, they become this big celebrity because of some confidence they have in something that has to do with them being from Canada, for sure. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about, just with what I'm describing. I'm saying the popular, famous Canadians that kind of have a lot of them have this talent level that is above Americans. And they're only able to reach that point by having this confidence in something about them being from Canada, and then us being from the United States is something they're holding over us, same way Canada is above the United States. And so I don't know what that thing is, because I'm not from Canada. I'm sure that there's plenty of Canadians that don't have this confidence. Those are the ones that just stay in Canada their entire lives. They don't tap into this thing where they're like, they're allowed to see themselves as above Americans, so they have like this sort of transcendent confidence all of their lives. But anyways, Lorne Michaels has taken this mentality and spoken it through Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live is just a big criticism of American culture, and all of the people that host it are made to look like idiots, and that's the point, is that. And so you go on there to, like, I'm gonna laugh at myself, and so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's kind of like, it's mean-spirited, but obviously Saturday Night Live is so successful, it doesn't really matter. But it's like Lorne Michaels is kind of just playing this big joke on Americans and American celebrities, and people are like, oh, Elon Musk looked bad when he hosted SNL. Shane Gillis looked bad when he hosted SNL. You're supposed to look bad. I honestly would trust it less if you looked good, because then you're just, I mean, I don't know. Plenty of people that are cool can look good hosting SNL. But in recent years, it's been more of a mean-spirited thing as they lose some of their power, and they become like a obviously left-leaning organization. They become defined that way. It becomes a bit more, their argument becomes a bit more hokey when it's like, obviously you just have this left-leaning opinion. And so they're kind of, I'd say that they've gotten more mean-spirited to their hosts and more just given over to, like, well, what we do at SNL is make them look like an idiot, make fun of them in all of the worst ways. Because that's what they do through they are like, what do we know about this person, and whatever. And so it's all good. I just wanted to bring up that the current SNL group that's like the Lonely Island. When I was growing up, it was Lonely Island. Kids that are growing up now, it's Please Don't Destroy. Please Don't Destroy is just like the Lonely Island, where they make parody songs. Not as good as Lonely Island. Not as funny. They're funny, though, I would say. But anyway, they made this one recently about getting high, where the song is like, I think I got too high. And they're talking about, like, they're at a party. It's like, starts off, they do it with Travis Scott, so it's like, it's a parody of just a rap song about getting high and how great that is. But they turn it into, like, they make it funny because they're like, oh shit, they just talk about the drawbacks of, like, I think I got too high, now I'm at a party and I can't talk to anybody and I feel like paranoid and scared of everybody and whatever it is. And this is a funny song, but Cody Ko, who is a influencer from Los Angeles, and this is a East Coast versus West Coast example that I'm bringing to you. Cody Ko's in Los Angeles. The music industry is taken seriously over there. The East Coast, I don't know that it's not like all of it is parody of. Obviously, the music industry is also taken seriously in New York, but anyway, Cody Ko and this guy named Young Nut, or this is artist name, Young Nut, made a song called Nightmare, where it talks about this exact same topic. You got too high, and you're at a party. Except that their song is a serious thing, where they're like, this is an attempt at a real song. But then you have the SNL version that is the criticized version of it, of this same idea, and it just apparently needed to be brought forth to be popularized nationwide at this time. Like 2024, the year was right for us to finally popularly articulate how scary it is when you get high. And so both of these parties do this, and I thought for a while, which one do I like better? And I thought they're actually both good, both of these, but I like the Cody Ko one better because it's like that one I think more would stand the test of time, because it's not like parody music. At least in the area of music, it's better to be serious, you know? It's the same with worldly music versus Christian music. Christian music, good Christian music, contemporary Christian music is bad, and it's just like a criticized version of music. And worldly music is like the real music, but that's because it's more serious. But I'm talking about that. To me, I'm just making the point that I'm a serious person. I'm more interested in like the serious one because I like that better. And so, as it turns out, I think I'm a serious person. But there's the criticized one, and then there's the serious one. and the criticized one is obviously more of a joke, but the criticized one is ends up being a parody of the Cody Ko one. The Please Don't Destroy one, it really ends up being a parody of the Cody Ko one, which is serious. I would say that the Cody Ko one is superior in quality, just objectively. Not like there's different opinions on who will think which one is better. I think that in reality, the truth is that the Cody Ko one is better because it is more serious. But it's not like it's just difficult to determine what is serious, what's a joke, because it's really like the serious version of that song is a very high-ended joke. It's just this is a joke that you'll have more difficulty overcoming because it's a good song too. They pulled it off successfully, and so now it is to be taken seriously. So when something is to be taken seriously, that's a better joke because like it's not like any art that anybody made should really be taken seriously, but like because like it's just some bullshit idea that somebody had that they threw out there, like, oh, whatever. But if it's something that actually resonates, or like it's difficult for the nation to get out of its system, if it's a good piece of art, then that's like a good joke that people are always trying to get to the bottom of, or like, why is that joke funny? Why is it memorable? Why is it a memorable thing that you know, and it's really like the piece of art will stand until the point that people really understand what the joke was. And then when they're able to define it, then it's kind of like, then people have risen above the joke. But so if it's a good piece of music, it's like a undefinable joke so it has to be rooted in something deep. But like, I just wanted to say about identities that people see different things about me at different times, whether it's a joke or whether it's serious, and identities are just kind of like fickle because they're dependent on what you are unidentified as well. And so like determining whether I'm joking or whether I'm being serious, it's really like I am being both at the same time. It probably is one or the other, but it might not be. Maybe it's just both of them. Maybe it's just that I have the ability to be subjective and objective at the same time, do opposites, because the way that something is defined, the way that it's identified, I think is dependent on the way that it is also unidentified. Like a joke is also defined by everything that the joke is not. And everything that the joke is not is just what a person is putting forward that you don't see about it. And really determining what it is that the person is putting forward that you don't see is how you figure out what the joke is. If you understand everything that it's not, you're able to, by process of elimination, pinpoint exactly what the joke is about. And there's just this principle that's been very important to me about about the visible spectrum. When the sun hits grass, photons hit grass or whatever, grass appears as green to all of us. And that's what we call it. That's like how we identify it. In this aspect of color, grass is green. Besides that, we identify it as grass. But like green, it becomes an important part of its identity, because all of the colors in the visible spectrum that aren't green were absorbed by grass. And the thing that bounces off, the photons that bounce off, are the green ones, the ones that the grass rejects. Those are ones that bounce off, and that's what we see to the point that we call it green, and that's what an identity is. The identity is what you see objectively, visibly on the surface of it, but it's dependent on the unidentity of it, which is all of the colors that it absorbed that aren't green. And this is what I'm saying is like how superficial the identity is, because it's just like one thing it's just what you see. Is the identity. It's just one thing that you're seeing at one time, but because I have more agency and I'm reacting to different situations, or not just me, but anybody, you know, even though we make a lot out of the identity, to the point that we're like, You have the authority to tell us about medicine if you're a doctor or whatever. Now you can tell us what we're supposed to do about our bodies or whether or not you should get a vaccine because of your identity, because the identity is so important. Even though when it comes to the name, like if your name is Jermaine Nelson, Jordy Nelson. If your name is Jordy Nelson, we're not like, oh, he's a Nelson, that he has the authority over that. And even though that's the thing, that's the title he is the longest, that he has the most authority over, we're like, oh, that means zero. That means nothing. But like if you're a lawyer or whatever, we're like, oh, the identity is so important. That's how we know who to listen to. The identity is just what you... It's everything. It's also everything besides the identity is what it's dependent on. And that's just like what you don't see. But it's like, I'm talking about how you can reduce people. Identities are all about like reducing people to the single image, because it's not the infinity that people hold important. It's the one, really, because that's like, for some reason, because it's not the unidentity that is valued in this world. It's the identity. Because people don't even have a concept of unidentity. And unidentified flying objects, for example, we're like, oh, that always exists in the periphery. I mean, it always exists in the beyond, in a world that we're not willing to define. Let's not even try to take on the task of reining in the unidentified. The unidentified is like, oh, that doesn't even exist, right? As it's dealt with, unidentified flying objects is one of the only interpretations of it that we've articulated, or UFOs was one of the only instances of unidentity that we give a voice to. But I'm just saying, like, probably if you are able to, people aren't really allowing the entire spectrum of color, right? The rainbow, and it's like they're trying to reduce it as much as possible to be like, oh, you are the one thing that we see. The point is that it's a choice that people make. There's only a small percentage of what you say, what you're thinking, that actually reaches the surface of like what actually you end up saying. The way that you represent yourself is you're limited in your ability to do it in comparison to how much is within you. And the things that we say that people are, they are determined by everybody else. It's not like in sports. I mean, people kind of talk about it. The identity is like you own your identity. In sports, they talk about it like, oh, you need to have an identity in order to win. That's what makes you successful. It's like people talk about it like you determine your identity. And it's true, you do. Like you control what you put out there, but you really don't control the way that it's perceived. And it's really just it's a choice that people make, and some people see some people are just bound to see it one thing, bound to see the opposites, bound to see it different. One thing to the next, yeah. I mean, somebody's going to see it as a joke, somebody's going to see it as serious, but it's a choice that other people have to make. It's not my identity is not a choice that I'm making. It is like half me and half the other people make the choice to choose. And so in that respect, people are not like grass at all. And that's something that I learned in school too, is that people are different from grass, and they're mutually exclusive. People aren't grass, and grass ain't people. Just the education system taught me to be learned, and that's how I got this way, is because of how learned I am. I got learnt, and I think it shows. I reflect it. I reflect learntness as best I can. Learnt. I'm just trying to show you some of the learnt qualities that I've always known that I possess, and I wanted to be able to express that and impress you with them. But it's really only a small percentage of the same way that it's a small sliver of the spectrum. That's like, that's what bounces off. That's what we determine an identity off of when it comes to color. The same thing is true about, it's a small percentage of bing bing bare ti ti. It's a small percentage of the things that you ever end up thinking ever come through to be seen. And so most of the things about you are exist in an unidentified way, and we don't usually take a lot of time and effort to explore those. And so you're not going to be able to know for sure how fake or how real it is. It's just I'm different ones at different times, obviously, same as most people. Love you guys, love it. And thank you for listening, especially if you've listened to this far. That makes me very happy, very gay. That makes me very gay that you listened this long. And no, but seriously, thank you very much. Bye, you guys are the best. See you later.